Brian Von VA here, and much like Kyle Reese in Terminator, I have one question for you. What day is it? The date! What year? That's right. What is the current year in your world? For the fantasy worlds, where are you? Are you in the hundreds, the thousands, maybe more? What event are we counting from, and is there a time prior to that event? For the more Earth-like worlds, are we in the 2000s, maybe pre-2K? Or are we a bit into the future, maybe the 2100s perhaps? And for the sci-fi folk, honestly, I have no idea how you'd make a galactic system that everyone uses, but I assume it would go off the same rules as common language and all that. Still, are we running around in the 10,000s, more, less, where? I'm interested mainly because I can't figure out what to do with my fantasy world. Putting down, oh, it's the year 12,000 in a fantasy world seems a bit weird. Current ideas are having something similar to the Eastern Society's dynasties and counting years based off that. It would work, at least in the current area and my protagonists are starting in, but I'm unsure about the rest of the places. Once more, it feels like this is something that will never come up in the story because really, who's going around saying what year it is? Year 153 or Year 153 post-Silent Exodus. The Silent Exodus was an apocalyptic event which obliterated the planet's surface, leaving few survivors underground. The Silent Exodus occurred at the turn of the century in the year 1900 SY, making the current year in pre-Silent Exodus calendars 2053 SY. So what does SY, the abbreviation, stand for? Solar Year. It occurred during a transitional period from ancient to modern powers and the formation of new belief systems based off the celestial bodies within their solar system. Pretty smart because it's down to science. 2861 Sun Calendar, spaceships are roaming around. The calendar started with some fuckers just dropped the sun on us. Fifth Age, Year 6. The Fourth Age lasted around 760 years and was the time in which major civilizations developed into world powers of a broadly medieval Renaissance vibe. The Fourth Age ended due to a global shift in power and the rise of industrialization. The previous three ages lasted unknown lengths of time, but the first two were several to hundreds of millennia, and the third was centuries to millennia. According to the Elven calendar, it is currently the year NN89. Well, what does N even mean, you ask? The elves use a base 12 number system, which is why there are letters in the number. C and N are the numbers that come between 9 and 10. So, translated to human numbers, NN89 equals 20,697. I made an elf to human calendar if you want to have a go. History is not entirely clear on what event Year 1 is supposed to represent. However, they pretty much all agree that the calendar isn't accurate. No records from this time exists. The calendar actually starts at the year 1000, 1728 in human numbers, with a celebration of the new era and to remember the past, which is a bit ironic, as no one now does. In fact, the first few thousands of years of history are very vague on the details, as this time was already ancient history when ancient history was written. Now the humans, on the other hand, they have no one agreed upon calendar. There are regional calendars based on various leaders, wars, or religious events. Some people say it's the year 347 of the miracle. Others say it's the year 1156 of the revolt. And the king of Dorlet insists it is the year 41, as his birth should clearly be the start of the calendar. Hey buddy, the world don't revolve around you. My world is in the year 270 of world time, though there are roughly 2300 before that called pre-time. The Order of the Aeons set a universal time calculation after enforcing peace over the nations of Vestoria. In my campaign, the date is currently Friday, June 21st, 862 PA, or post-awakening. Unless you follow the Elven calendar of Silshara, in which case, because today is the summer solstice, today is New Year's Day, and first of the prelude of 275th year of Queen Gwenethalla Voyante. Unless you, of course, follow the calendar of the Mountain or Borean dwarves, in which case, today is the 5th day of rest after the 3rd shift of the rise. The rites of stone will be held the day after tomorrow. Unless you follow the calendar of the orcs, because they don't actually have a calendar, it's just midsummer. If we're using the old Solian calendar, roughly 3050 or 3100 AD, or at least most estimates in the system are around that number. The ubiquitous post-Severance period calendar is currently at 173 PSP, or exactly 173 years since the onset of the New Dark Age. 2742 Gregorian calendar. In galactic years, it's 3258, which is how many years ago the Galactic Alliance was founded by a few of the warp-capable species of that time period, with the help of the Red Watchman Guild, which is one of the longest-running guilds in the galaxy. Due to their ability to keep travel safe and efficient, pretty much everyone is reliant on them to maintain their FTL, or faster-than-light, capabilities. The Red Watchman Guild places the current year at 3982, which is the approximate date of its incorporation by the Empire that used to exist when it was founded. This empire spanned 20 star systems before it eventually collapsed into multiple successor states, which were eventually absorbed into the Terran Protectorate. The Terran Protectorate gives the guild special protections called Ancient Liberties in law. Of course, only the Red Watchman Guild actually claims to know when it was founded, as exo-archaeologists from multiple countries have tried and, well, failed to find archaeological evidence of the guild's founding and incorporation. Other calendars, which include the Warp Calendar, which places the current year at 531, or the Scientific Calendar, which places the current year at somewhere around 13 billion, which is seldom used even by scientists. There's the Imperial Calendar, which places the current year at 10,362, the date of the founding of the Imperium. There's also more than that, but those are the ones you're most likely to see used. This is very our time centric, you know? Even now on Earth, we have many dating systems, and it's only because of globalization that they are all somehow coordinated, and we can somehow switch from one to another by adding or subtracting a number. In the past, time was counted in different ways, especially religious calendars. They didn't have to care about how many times Earth revolved around the sun, so let's use Venus instead. Or let's use moon waxing and waning times 12. Screw those peasants and their crops! Besides, of course, it was customary in many cultures to count years of reign of the current king, or a pair of consuls as in Rome, or the number of Olympiads as in Greece. And in many cases, you can find notes like, "It was X years after an event." And then, a dedicated historian spends his or her career trying to make sense out of it. On the other hand, in realistic sci-fi Earth years quickly stop making sense as well. A civilization settled on many planets will use both local years and some kind of standardized time tracking that might be different from all of the other planets, as an example for political reasons to avoid favorizing one of them. Or, if a culture lives on a space station long enough, they may drop the idea of a year altogether and just use kilodays or something. Anyway, my story is set in the Neolithic, and people just don't keep count like that. X years after an event it is. My story begins at 516. The world clock has reset dozens of times. The most recent time, 516 years ago, which was the end of the Ancient War. The reason the war was so significant that they had to restart the clock? Every royal family was killed, so that's 100 plus people. So the citizens of the world were forced to elect new royals and create new kingdoms. The world completely changed, so it's only fitting to commemorate that with the date. 763 PG, post-governance. after the signing of the Concord of the Great Trust by the member races which officially formed the nation of Astaria on the continent of Atox. However, this is known to be at least the third attempt at a calendar and the fourth attempt at founding of some sort of continent-wide government. One of the oldest living people in the world, a fairy who has lived for over 4,000 years, knows of at least 4 previous civilizations, and there is evidence of a civilization of creator beings who existed over 100,000 years ago and suddenly disappeared about 40,000 years ago. What really happened is this. About 150,000 years ago, a highly advanced humanoid race called the Lothalians, basically half-elves with some minor differences, doesn't matter really in the world setting, from the planet Lothatai in the realm of, oh my god, I can't even pronounce that word, but I'm gonna try, Gina Materia, discovered a type of crystal on their homeworld which they called Keystuna, or Keystone. They experimented with this crystal and found that by shooting them with a high-energy light beam, aka a laser, they could transfer energy into the crystal, which would then continue to refract around inside the crystal and build upon itself to create a near-infinite power source. In essence, they had discovered a way to make a perpetual self-contained nuclear device. They also discovered that by putting smaller crystals close to a bigger one, the smaller crystals would begin to charge as well. Over the next few decades, they began converting their entire civilization's technology to use the power from these crystals, installing large crystals at a central point to their cities so that every smaller crystal within their effective radius would automatically charge as well. Essentially, they had worldwide wireless charging. After more scientific tinkering, they discovered that they could also merge a crystal into their own biology and power themselves, giving themselves massive advantages over every other race to the point of literally becoming gods capable of creating matter because they could see how matter worked. Now that they were essentially the rulers of their own universe, they changed their name from the Lothalians to the Creadon, which in their native language means creator. However, this advancement came at a cost. They were now immortal beings, but they couldn't reproduce, and nearly all of them lost all sense of emotion and empathy, leading them to become very hyper-focused on scientific advancement with very little ethical oversight. This led to them creating a separate realm space, disconnected from their own, which they called Giamatara. In this realm space, they created a single solar system with one planet called Anvora. 100,000 years ago, they sent 10,000 scientists to this singular planet with the goal of using the planet as a giant lab for experimenting on, creating new species, and seeing how they interacted with each other, experimenting on them directly and wiping out, quote-unquote, failed experiments whenever they deemed it necessary by simply deactivating them. Sounds like a fancy way of saying just kill those sons of guns. Anvora itself is actually a controlled experiment managed by a highly sophisticated computer system that calculates everything that happens within it in real time. And the scientists wrote the code for the world's physics systems and such all by themselves. 40,000 years ago, the few remaining Creadon scientists who had any sense of morality or ethics rebelled against the ones who did not, and purposely sabotaged all of the Creadon cities in Anvora to overload everyone's crystals, wiping out all but 12 Creadon who stayed in a shielded location to monitor the main computer that runs the world. These 12 Creadon live in secret, maintaining the world's functions while staying out of the lives of the people who live on the surface, allowing them to have the freedom they were being denied in the past. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and let us know. What is the current year in your world? How did it come to pass? And tell us a little bit about it. We love you all. Be safe, be happy. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.